welcome back. You're watching The Money Show on ET Now. The one factor that's really causing fear among all of us is the outbreak of the deadly coronavirus, which has just in a span of 2 to 3 weeks expanded and how. Started off on the 31st of December in mainland China in the Wuhan province, and now it has spread. In fact, the number of confirmed cases are 5,974. As the map is suggesting, it's mostly concentrated around Asia. But the virus has made its way all the way to Canada, France, the United States as well. In fact, the United States, which is literally across the Pacific Ocean, has got 5 confirmed cases of the coronavirus. Several people in India as well are currently under observation. And while, of course, we must take every precaution health-wise as well, ensure that you carry out certain precautions, it's also important that you are prepared for yourself financially. And that brings us to the question of health insurance. Is your current health insurance amped up enough to cover a virus such as coronavirus? We will be talking about that with Amit Chhabra. He's the business head for health insurance, policybazaar.com. Amit, thank you so much for joining us on The Money Show. You know, epidemics are something that unfortunately mankind is not new to. We have seen such epidemics in the past as well. What makes the coronavirus so deadly? I mean, thankfully, we have great institutions out there that have been extremely prompt in reacting to this outbreak. But still, it has touched 5,974 individuals. In fact, it's also been responsible, for about 106 mortalities. So is it the fact that there's still no vaccination, there's still no cure for the coronavirus that makes it so deadly?
I think, Mubina, there are 4 reasons why I think this is really scary as a situation, and why this is so dangerous for everybody. So if you look at the mortality rate, 10% of all people who contract this virus, end up not surviving, which is worse than a heart attack. So if 100 people get this, about 10 of them or more of them end up dying. So from a mortality rate perspective, this is very, very dangerous. That's one. The second thing is there is no known treatment for this as of now. While there have been a lot of theories around it, and I think there's a team of doctors all across the world which is trying to get to a vaccination or a cure. As of now, we haven't had a confirmed cure for the disease. The third big problem is this is as good as a common cold. So if somebody has a common cold or this virus, they won't even be able to distinguish between the two very easily. So it's very hard to detect if somebody has this disease, and because of that reason, it becomes very difficult, and that's why it spread so much. So we have had cases where in other countries like Germany, for example, people have contracted this virus and they didn't even travel to China. So people who have a common cold, who have probably come from China and are now traveling to different countries, it's ending up spreading. So from that perspective, yes, it's not that easy to control. It spreads exactly like how common cold spreads. So it means if somebody sneezes around you and it can spread the virus. So it's very easy to spread and very hard to detect, and it's dangerous. So from that perspective, yes, it's definitely a scary situation.
Right. So Amit, now of course, I mean, as an individual, what I'm worried about is that God forbid if this disease makes itself in my home, how am I to protect myself, my loved ones, my family? Now, just a simple question. I hope most of, the viewers watching are covered with, your basic Mediclaim policy, your basic health insurance policy. Would a plain vanilla health insurance policy, even if you're in group, let's say, even if you're employed and your employer has you under group coverage, would that cover a disease like coronavirus?
Yes, it absolutely will. See, so coronavirus is it's sort of a new disease, so to say, because we haven't seen this in the past much. But definitely, if you have a health insurance policy, this will definitely be covered there. If somebody is just the only caveat is if somebody is already infected with this virus, then they may not be able to get a policy. But if you already have an existing policy, then yes, it will definitely be covering the treatment costs and all other allied costs related to the treatment. The one catch here is, one is, will it be covered? The second is, will your health insurance be sufficient to cover the kind of expenses that come with a disease like the coronavirus? So typically we see that, and you mentioned a group cover, typically an employer cover ranges from 2 lakhs to 3 lakh rupees sum insured, which means the maximum coverage that you can get is about 3 lakh rupees in case hospitalization happens. People who buy a retail plan directly from an insurance company or an agent or an intermediary, they typically buy a 5 lakh rupee plan. Again, what everybody needs to understand is that, that may not be sufficient, and in times like these when the hospitalization costs are so high, you may have a plan and it will be covered, but you need to have a sufficient enough health insurance. I think that becomes very, very critical.
You define as sufficient? That was going to be my next question actually, and you've answered that. So what would you define as sufficient under such circumstances, Amit?
I think it's a function of how much somebody is willing to pay, but as a minimal, I think somebody must look at least 10 lakh rupees sum insured per person insured in a policy. So for example, let's say if it's a married couple and who has a child with them, they should look at least a 20 to 30 lakh rupees sum insured. Now, it's, as I said, it's a function of price, right? Because the prices or the premiums will increase substantially as you increase sum insured. I think that's where the industry is coming along really well. So there's a lot of product innovation that's happening now from a health insurance perspective, which means there are products available which can offer a very, very high sum insured, which goes up to 1 crore rupees at a very low price. So I think that is where customers need to understand that, they should be okay willing that extra bit of money, but to get complete peace of mind and coverage, so that if anything untoward happens in the future, like nobody foresaw this coronavirus coming, right? So if anything untoward happens in the future, they should be covered with amount as big as 1 crore rupees.
Okay. All right. Well, and on the graphics, for all of the benefit of our viewers, Policy Bazaar has given some recommendations of plans as well that you could consider. Thanks so much, Amit, for then joining us on this important story that is still developing, and that's of the coronavirus and how individuals can protect themselves, not just, of course, physically, but even from a financial perspective. But of course, preventive medicine is the best. There's no medicine as preventive medicine. So folks, stay safe, avoid all travel to any of these stated countries. Well, on that note, we'll wrap it up, folks. So thanks so much for watching this episode of The Money Show. We'll be back tomorrow with a brand new one.